Hey book lovers, I'm Elise and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of February. In the month of February, I did read 9 books, 2 nonfiction, 2 historical, 2 horror, 1 dystopian sci-fi, 1 contemporary, and 1 mystery thriller. I did also DNF a few books this month. The first book that I DNF'd was a science fiction novel that I picked up at my library called The Terraformers by Annalee Newitz. So this one, I just think the world building for me, it was a little too intense, a little too crazy. It wasn't catching my attention. I wasn't really following along. I felt like I was in over my head, which is really unfortunate. I liked the premise of the book. It has a lot to do with maintaining and nurturing ecosystems to prevent their collapse. Unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. The next book that I DNF'd was actually an e-arc that I received from NetGalley, which was The Angel Maker by Alex North. This would have been my first Alex North novel, which I am upset about. I have heard from a few other people and a lot of Goodreads reviews that this isn't the author's normal book, meaning that the author's previous works, a lot of fans really preferred those books over this newer one that just came out. So I'm not opposed to reading Alex North in the future. I think I got about 40% into the audiobook for it, and I had a lot of issues with it. I felt like I knew what the outcome was going to be, which was really irritating because if I did know, then I felt like I was just sitting there waiting for the characters to kind of get with the program. But if I didn't know, maybe I missed out on a really good twist. I have no idea. By 40% in, I kind of felt like, I should probably be caring a little bit more about these characters and the story and what's going to happen to them, and I just didn't. And the last book that I DNF'd was Not a Happy Family by Sherry LaPena. This is a domestic suspense mystery thriller. We have a married couple who are very well off and they have 3 children. The book starts out, well, in the prologue we come across the scene of the parents who somebody had clearly, I guess the whole premise of the story is trying to figure out who did it. And honestly, it could have been any one of the kids. I mean, very high profile family with a lot of money. It didn't feel unique enough to hold my attention, and I really honestly did not care. Was it the daughter who really wanted the house and was upset to find out that the parents decided to sell it? Was it the son who hoped that the father would leave his company to him and did not? Is it the daughter who is kind of like the black sheep of the family, does her own thing, probably to get attention, and I don't know, but I don't really care. If you have read this and it has a pretty good twist, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I always link that down in the description below. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind talking about it if it does end up having a really good outcome. And then I did soft DNF a book, which is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I started reading this for a couple of reasons. The first of which was for the X's and O's readathon. One of the prompts for Team X was to read something with red on the cover. And I was also buddy reading this with a few friends. I got 35 pages in and I don't know, I want to give it another try. I honestly think maybe in the summertime, this might be a good beach read, boat read, whatever it may be. Right now, it just was not catching my attention. But like I said, all of the great reviews that I've heard about it, I do like toxic relationships. I love Chuck and Blair from Gossip Girl, and I hear time and time again that is very similar to Magnolia and BJ in this one. So I am willing to give it a second chance, but for now, it's a soft DNF. You guys, I had another banger month. I read 4 5-star reads. I don't know how this keeps happening. Last month I read 3. This month I read 4. Is March gonna be 5 or more? That'd be great because it's my birthday month. And if that could be the best reading month of the year, that would be fantastic. I had 1 2.5-star read, which was The Drift by CJ Tudor. This one I did read for my X's and O's readathon vlog, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail. If you want more information on that one, I've got that vlog linked in the description below, so go ahead and check it out. The book started out great. I was super intrigued, but then it felt very repetitive because you have 3 different points of views. They're kind of dealing with the same thing. They're fighting against the elements because they're in the dead of winter and it's snowy and they're like in the mountains. And there's also something else that they're trying to survive against. So super interesting premise. Unfortunately, the execution just wasn't for me. The twist of the story kind of pissed me off a little bit. Overall, it left me with a pretty sour taste in my mouth. I had 2 3.5-star reads. The first of which was a nonfiction memoir, Humor, Excuse Me While I Disappear by Lori Notaro. I've been reading her books since I was like a teenager. When I saw she had a newer one out, I wanted to give it a go. It was still pretty funny. She's a bit older than me, so some of the things weren't super relatable, but it was interesting because I actually started listening to this while I was coloring my hair. I was trying to cover up my grays, which have pretty quickly returned. So that didn't go well. The first part of the book is she's talking about graying and do you embrace it? Do you keep trying to color it? And I thought it was pretty ironic because I put my earbuds in as I was starting to process my hair, and then it dawned on me what she was talking about. I'm like, oh, well, this is fitting. If you want a good chuckle, it might be one to pick up. The other 3.5-star book that I read was The Gracier by Kim Liggett. This is a young adult dystopian novel set at a time where women, for their 16th year, they are basically exiled from their community and they have to go out into the wilderness, and there's a place, there's like a camp type setting that they can go to, but they're pretty much on their own. They have to gather their own food. There are, like, I keep wanting to say wildlings from Game of Thrones, but that's not what they're called. I can't think of what they're called right now, but basically other people who don't live in the community that just do live in the wild. But the whole purpose of this is because women are thought to have this power, this magic that makes them unsafe to live in society, and the only way that they are able to come back and marry is if they go and basically expel their magic from themselves. I heard a lot of great things about this. This was actually one of the 12 books recommended by 12 friends for the year of 2023. I didn't dislike the story. It felt a little predictable to me, and it was very, very YA. And I know it is a YA, but as you'll see later, not all YAs feel YA, and it's the ones that feel very young adult that I don't typically like, and unfortunately this one did. I mean, overall it was fine. It held my attention. There's a bit of a romance in there, which was very sweet. Not one of my favorites. I do think there is a lot of important themes in here about women and the roles that they play in society. So if you are a fan of YA, you like dystopian, and you like feminist reads, then I would suggest you pick this up. And I had 1 4-star read, which is One by One by Ruth Ware. This was also featured in my X's and O's readathon vlog, so again, check that out for more details, but this one was fine. I think the gist of my review was that it felt more like a suspense. Nothing really surprised me with it. There was no big reveal or big twist that shook me by any means, but it was pretty well paced. I thought the plot was decent. So this is the one where a bunch of employees from a tech company that created this app called Snoop, which is kind of like a music listening social media type app. So basically you can snoop on people from anywhere in the world. All of these employees, they go to this ski chalet in the Swiss Alps. Nope, in the French Alps, there's a huge avalanche and they get snowed in and people die. The survivors have to try to figure out who did it and who's next. All right, next up is my 4.5-star read, which was Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulik. I do apologize, I've been saying his name completely wrong. I think I used to say Rekulak, but it is Rekulik, according to his Instagram page. Y'all, I started and finished this book in one day. No big reason that this was not a 5-star read. It just didn't have that 5-star feel for me. But I mean, this was amazing. It was well paced. The plot was fantastic. I didn't see any of it coming. 100% see why this won Best Horror in the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2022. I wouldn't have really pegged this as a horror, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was super thrillery either. I don't know. I guess of the two genres, horror would be best fitting. It's not horror like Grady Hendrix horror, like rats crawling on the floor and getting stuck in the eyeball with a needle, anything like that. Really good, really fast paced. Like I said, like this is so bingeable. I could not put it down. So if you have not yet read this book, what are you doing? Okay, now to my 5-star reads. Like I said, there are 4. The first of which is Hello Molly by Molly Shannon. This is Molly Shannon's memoir that just came out last year. And oh my goodness, I had no idea of the tragic childhood that she had. I had no idea whatsoever, and it hits right in chapter 1. I was crying. Chapter 1, Molly Shannon is one of the funniest actresses, and chapter 1 of her memoir, I'm crying, and then many other times throughout. I love her so much more for this book. I'm so thankful that she shared this with the world. It's funny because she comes across a certain way in her movies and like on SNL and everything. everything, and that's just who she is. I usually listen to my audiobooks anywhere from 2 to 2.5 times speed. I could not with this one because she talks so fast to begin with that even on 2 times speed, I couldn't understand her. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and it made me appreciate her so much more. The next 5-star read, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was the 3rd and final book in my X's and O's readathon vlogs. The story was fine. I liked the first half better than the second half just because I liked the historical. I mean, it's all historical because even the present day is in the 80s, I think. There are parts that go back into the 50s, 60s, 70s. I liked having those flashbacks. Taylor Jenkins Reid, at this point, this is my 3rd read of hers now, and the woman can do no wrong. The way that she creates characters is insane. Like, they feel so real. I feel so connected to them. Even if I don't like them, I care. She makes you care about her characters. That is such a talent. TJR is an amazing writer, and I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. Not really, because I'm not a fighter. Second to last book, The Storied Life of AJ Vickery by Gabrielle Zevin. Wow. This was great. I'm not gonna give you hardly any detail about the plot because the synopsis is very vague, and I think it does that for a reason, because it is best to go into this blindly, not really knowing what you're getting yourself into. As the title may suggest, you're following the life of a man named AJ Vickery. He owns a bookstore. He's a very interesting character, and he's somebody that has a pretty thick shell that you have to kind of break through to get to the ooey gooey center. But once you do, on the cover, the Washington Post is quoted as saying, entertaining, engaging, and funny, marvelously optimistic. That is accurate. You won't want it to end. Accurate. Captures the joy of connecting people and books. Irresistible. Accurate. A wonderful, moving, endearing story of redemption and transformation that will sing in your heart for a very, very long time. Accurate. If you have not read this book, you must. Very sweet, very heartwarming. And this is one that you care for the characters, you care for their well-being and the outcome of what happens to them. And there's a little bit of a mystery in here too, which is kind of fun. And the final book, and my favorite book for the month of February, is Immortality, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. This is the 2nd and final book in the duology that started with Anatomy, a Love Story, and it follows Hazel Sinnott, who wants nothing more than to be a surgeon. She lives in the 1800s in Scotland. Actually, the second one doesn't take place fully in Scotland, but the first book starts there. And this is what I was talking about by not all young adult books feel YA, because these ones do not. Anatomy didn't, Immortality doesn't, but Hazel Sinnott is probably one of my favorite female fiction characters. So because this is a sequel, I don't want to go into too much detail in case I spoil the first book. So this is definitely historical because it takes place in the 1800s during the Regency era. I would say a little bit of Gothic literature type feel to it. Lots of science and medical stuff. If you've read and loved Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match, I think this would be a good book for you, because I also loved that one. Honestly, I mean, I loved the first one, and the second one, sequels usually make me nervous that it's not going to be as good, especially when I loved the first book. It was just as good, if not better. Like, the things that happen, I don't know. I can't rave enough about this book. Definitely my favorite duology of all time. I will definitely be picking up anything else that Dana Schwartz puts out. Those are the books that I read in the month of February. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know down in the comments below if we read any of the same books, and let me know what your favorite read in February was. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Please be sure to like and subscribe as it really helps out my channel, and until next time. Bye.